very much was the foundation of what we did at the Star. It's the foundation of the Watergate reporting, the best obtainable version of the truth. And I think that in the 1960s, 70s, and I don't think we want to be too nostalgic either, but nonetheless, the goal of serious journalistic institutions was that best obtainable version of the truth. Part of that has to do with context in reporting, not just simple facts laid out, but context of a story is very much part of the best obtainable version of the truth. So now, if we look at the media landscape, not only in the United States, but around the world, it reflects a totally different cultural and political reality than existed either in the 1960s when I went to work or the 1970s when we reported Watergate. So let's look at what's happening in Washington as we speak. A government shutdown as a result of ideological warfare and scorched earth politics in which ideology becomes more important than the national interest or the common good. That situation in the United States, in the Congress of the United States, which is a totally broken institution, has been deteriorating for the last 25 years. Increasingly, what we cover is a reflection of that ideological debate. And it's not just about the United States. In all of the Western democracies, in almost all of the new so-called democracies of the former communist East, in the Americas, to some extent, we also have this terrible scorched earth ideological divide between left and right, very little communication in which the national interest is becoming subsumed to ideological interest. Not only do we see it in our political institutions, but we see it in our readers, in our viewers, and particularly on the internet. So at the time of Watergate, at the time that I went to work at the Washington Star, most people who went to get news, whether in print or television, and even to some extent at the beginning of the internet age, but less so, went seeking the best obtainable version of the truth. Not just the best of journalistic institutions trying to provide the best obtainable versions of the truth, but people going to the newspapers, television stations, media outlets, magazines, because they were interested in the truth. Increasingly, and this is why we can't just blame journalists for what we see now. Increasingly, people are going to get information not for the best obtainable version of the truth, but to reinforce their already held ideological beliefs, political beliefs, religious beliefs, with very little interest in the truth. So we now have cultures and societies less interested in the truth. So we have online thousands of websites in which millions and millions of people go every day, not to learn what's really happening, not to look at context, but to get angry and to reinforce what they already believe. And increasingly, we have media institutions feeding that frenzy. So that is the first thing I would say about change in journalism. And it comes at the same time that the internet is taking the traditional print journalistic institutions and stripping them of their profits because the old model doesn't work. So that means we have fewer journalistic institutions committed on a large scale to this kind of great reporting that we might have had in the past. At the same time, make no mistake, there is great reporting going on all over the United States, all over Europe, all over the Americas, in the countries of the former communist East, and a lot of it is on the internet. So there's no shortage of great reporting. The question is, can it be supported? Are there people willing to consider the information of great reporting and put aside their partisan ideological beliefs? There's one other great difference in the media between when I went to work in 1960 or at the time of Watergate, and that is the intimidation of journalists